Hello, awesome people. I hope you're having a great day today. Today we're taking a look at the Song of Roland. It's one of the most read and popular French poems out there for you folks. It's set in the era of Charlemagne, after he has been reigning for a while. And it's set in Spain, and he's been invading Spain for years, and he's gotten a lot of property and so forth. And the key character in this is Roland, the named character, and they are about to invade this Saragossa, and so the king of Saragossa, Marshal, will basically open up and talk about how bad this is about to get to him, and look for ways out. And one of his ministers will say to him, "All right, well, let's give up and send our honors and our money and our accolades and our tributes and become a vassal of France." And so he does it. And on the way down, an enemy of Roland is there, and they will join forces against him and plot against him. And that's like 5 pages into like this story. So you'll find out what's going on very, very early on. It's about 120 pages long. There's a translation here in this Penguin Classics that I'll link you to. I'll also try to find you a free version that's past its copyright date, and there's also a French version too, and that's also in modern French, since this is such an old work for you folks. So this is an epic work set during an era of conquest between France and Spain, and in this case, Spain is currently ruled by the Muslims during the era that they controlled the Iberian Peninsula. And they controlled it for some centuries. And again, France will during that time, they'll grab some of that land and they'll gobble it up and so forth. And it's a lot of fun stuff that's happening near them. And then some Christian nations will begin to fight, and they'll grab some other things too in Iberia proper, like Castile, Aragon, Navarra, Leon, Galicia, and so forth. And slowly over time, with a lot of setbacks, they will slowly over time eventually reconquer the peninsula in the name of Catholicism, and oust out everybody. And in the final nation it's ousted is Granada in the 1400s. And just before sailing with the unification of Castile and Aragon, with their marriage, and just before she sends to Christopher Columbus in that year, 1492, Granada will be taken out, and they will have finished what they call the Reconquista era of European history in the Iberian Peninsula. So Saragossa is one of the key players in this era, and they're sort of a hegemon, if you will, during this era. So I'm giving this novel, this epic poem rather, which was pretty quick to read, and I just knocked it out over the last 3 days, actually 4 days ago, and 3 days ago, and 2 days ago, but yesterday I couldn't record it because the power was out. But anyway, so I'm giving this, because it's such an epic poem, and it was a lot of fun, fast to read, and definitely very gripping, an 8 out of 10. Some people might rank it higher. I prefer the poem of the Cid, which I just went back and reread too, which is also an era of the Reconquista, but it feels more realistic, even though obviously it's not, because it has a lot of the reality of the Reconquista eras is much more realized than here. For example, in the Reconquista era, during the centuries of war between the two powers, the Muslims and the Christians, there really wasn't this unified sense of Christians versus Muslims, right? There were a lot of Christians on the Muslim side, and there were a lot of Muslims on the Christian side. And the Song of the Cid, the poem of the Cid rather, gets that, right? There are allies, Muslim, during the Cid for Castile, and they're fine. And there's some good, reliable, honorable people fighting for Castile and the Cid. And there are some good, and there are some Castilians that are Catholic and that are fighting for the Muslims on the other side, right? And so it's important to understand that this war is not just Christians versus Muslims, right? It's in this era, there's a lot of people on both sides, and this does not really show that in reality. And of course, it's set hundreds of years earlier, during Charlemagne's era, during the formation of the Holy Roman Empire, and after he started conquering. So it's set in an earlier time. To be fair, it's not set at the time in the 1200s, but still, nevertheless, it is. It's not as realistic a description of this era as you might otherwise want to believe, right? So I think that the Cid is probably the more realistic of the two. I do reviews of fantasy, science fiction, and horror for you folks. This epic does have the occasional throwaway line like griffins or dragons and so forth, and definitely seen. And there's also some items in here that have touched Christ and now have magical powers, like the spear that pierced Christ is the spear that Charlemagne uses as his lance, and so he can't be defeated, right? So that is arguably fantasy in a lower sense. That happens, and a lot of the weapons and items that these people have on the Franks side, that's also pretty important. Now, this is one of the most influential of the works, however, because Roland and his 12 peers are sort of seen as where the modern paladin came from, right? Roland's definitely a paladin. He's holy. He's devout. He only does right, just like the paladin class in Dungeons and Dragons. He has him and his peers act very holy, very 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 devoutly. They tithe. They give to the poor. They support the archbishops and so forth, right? And so forth. So him and his peers are definitely seen as sort of the era of the paladin, if you will, and where a lot of the modern ideas of where the paladin came from are from this song, the Song of Roland, and him and his paladins. So I think that's cool. And you definitely get that from this. So it's worth reading because of how influential it is on modern fantasy too, even if the fantasy elements are very light. So this is a geeky work for that field. So there you are. So that is my review, spoiler free. Now this epic poem has 3 basic sections, although it's not divided into 3 songs like the poem of the Cid was, that I just reviewed for you and went back and reread. In this case, it is 3 separate sections, and they're not split up like a third of the way each way, even though it took me about an hour for me to knock out each 40 pages, so it took about 3 hours for me to read over the last few days. But still, nevertheless, it was definitely a fun thing, and fast. It's definitely engaging. And like an epic poem, it will repeat itself in stanzas to stanzas, right? It'll have that sort of so somebody might say something to Roland, and Roland will disagree with them, and then they'll say it again, and then they'll say it again. Right, that's sort of the poetry, epic aspect. So you just know that alien to it. Anyway, so there you are. That's my quick little review. I'm giving this an 8 out of 10 to this epic poem. Next is going to be the Nibelungenlied, which I'll start reading here in a little bit for you folks. Have you read this? If so, what did you think about it? Let's talk about it in the comments below. And if you want to talk about spoilers or the ending, let's do it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, why not hit that subscribe button? There's going to be a lot more of these to follow. As a reminder, the name of this channel, The Worst Thing About New Books, is a quote by a French philosopher, very appropriate in this case, named Jacques Joubert, who said that the worst thing about new books is that they kept us from reading the old ones, and a book that was written centuries ago is definitely an older book. So finally, I want to thank you so much for taking some time out of your day and investing it and watching my video. We all have so many things that are happening in our lives, and we're pulled in so many different directions. So the fact that you spent this time with me is incredibly humbling, and I appreciate it. Thanks again, and have an amazing day.